Was September a better month than August? Yes and no. Hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. I am so grateful that you have joined my channel. I know a lot of you have told me lately that you're new, and I appreciate it. If you want to let me know that you're new, you can let me know in the comments down below. Just say, hi, I'm new. If you want to tell me how you got here, that's great too. And of course, to all my OG subscribers, I appreciate you too. I appreciate all of you so very much. Now, let's get into what we are here to discuss. Everything that I read and completed in the month of September. This month was slightly better than August, but it wasn't great. Now, I'm going to talk about the books in the order that I read them in. And also, I'm not sure how much I'm going to edit this video. I've spoken about this in a previous video and also in one of my community posts, but I am dealing with some muscle strain or whatnot in my right hand, mostly from overexertion with work. I do a lot of mouse keyboard work, and I will be seeing an occupational therapist soon. So I'm going to try to rest and not do as much with the editing. So you may get more uncut Nakia. So, you shall see. I don't even know what I'm going to do, but let's get into it. Okay. So first up, I finally finished Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I had to go look because I was like, did I really finish this book in September? It was at the beginning of the month, and I was quite disappointed when the book was over. But I wasn't even sure when I started reading it, which it was the end of July. Now, this book is a thicken, so that is one of the reasons why it took me so long. Also, around chapter 5, I switched to the audiobook because the science had gotten to be a bit much for me, and I just found I just couldn't focus when I was trying to read it, but I was enjoying the story. So I was like, let me check out the audiobook. If I like the audiobook, I'm going to continue that way, which is what I did. And with a book like that, when I'm just doing audiobook only, I generally just listen when I'm in my car, going on errands, like today, getting ready to film. I listen while I'm getting dressed. But otherwise, that's pretty much the only time I'm listening to the audiobook. And because I work from home and I run to the stores close by, I'm not in the car that long. So this is why it took me a while to finish. But let me just say, I posted about this on my Instagram page if you already saw it, but if not, I loved Project Hail Mary. It is one of my favorite books of 2021. I still think about lines from the book. There is a character that I find myself saying things in the way they say it all the time, which that is a sign of a great book. But let me tell you what it's about, just in case you don't know. Project Hail Mary is about a scientist named Rylan. He wakes up on this ship and he has no idea how he got there, what his name is, nothing like that. So it's kind of a mystery because he's trying to figure out why he's on this ship, what's going on. We have some flashbacks in the other chapters that go from before he got on the ship when he was back on Earth, and then in the present when he's on the ship. So that part was already intriguing. Now, like I said, in true Andy Weir fashion, there is a lot of science that goes way over my head. If I really wanted to know, I would take out a dictionary or go to Google and look up this stuff, but it's not necessary. Some of the stuff you can get from context clues, other things, I have no idea what the hell he was talking about. I felt the same way when I read The Martian, but I still was able to enjoy it. This one I enjoyed way more. I know a lot of people have been comparing this book to The Martian. It is not like The Martian. The only two things it has in common is a scientist / astronaut who is stuck somewhere trying to get back home. That's where it ends. The humor in this is not the same as The Martian. This guy is a little more straight-laced, buttoned up, so his humor is not so. The Martian, people just found some of the humor a little bit offensive at times. This guy is nothing like that. Basically, we find out that Earth is in danger, the sun is dying, and if the sun dies, we all die. So he is on a mission to try to save Earth. That's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to give too much away. And why you will probably hear everybody ranting and raving about this book is because there is a secondary character who comes in that is just, I just loved him so much. I can't say anything else because it'd be a spoiler, and I want you to be surprised just like I was and everyone else who read it. But that is the reason this book was one of my favorites of the year. I laughed, I teared up, I cheered. As I said, when it was over, I didn't want it to be over. I loved every moment of it. I probably will re-listen to it at some point because since I paid for the audiobook, I own it. And like I said, I just want to relive moments between these two characters, and just, I've already said, if they make any merch with this second character on it, I am here for it. If you don't know, they're making a movie with Ryan Gosling in it. I'm not sure about that casting choice, but I am looking forward to it because I cannot wait to see what they do with this other character in the book. So if you haven't guessed by now, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Like I said, it will be on my top favorites of the year at the end of the year. So can't recommend it enough. Let's move on. This next book was personally recommended to me by another fellow booktuber, Paulina from Frosta Wings It. I will have her channel linked below. I talked about this in my TBR video, and I also did a review, so I'm not gonna go too deep into it. But that book would be The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. Now, she knows that I love a good psychological thriller, horror, all of it. I also love books so far about psychiatrists, psychiatry field altogether. So she thought this would be perfect for me. Now, she also knew there were some content warnings that I may not be okay with. She was willing to tell me ahead of time, but I was like, nope, nope, nope. I'm going to read for myself. I had already seen the content warning, so I was not going to try to read this book. But like I said, for her, I was like, I'm going to do it. Now, like I said, because I did a review, I'm not going to go too far into it. You can check out that video. I'll have it linked up here. But I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I mostly enjoyed it. If it were not for those content warnings, this book would have been probably top tier of horror books. But those content warnings just brought it down. And this is my issue with horror books. There's just always things in them that I just don't like. Sexual assault, rape, animal abuse, animal torture, things like that. And I'm just always like, why? Why can't we have a horror book without it? So again, there you go. I know a lot of you loved it. Like I said, it was creepy and all of that, but those things, just like I said, brought it down for me. I'm not here for it. So let's move on. Next up, we have a book that I was anticipating for a good little while because I read this author's debut novel, Nightmare. So I'm talking about Shade by Chad Nicholas. I actually participated in a live discussion with Steve from Steve Talks Books and Stuff. I always say talks about. Steve Talks Books and Stuff. And we talked to Chad Nicholas about Shade. And while we were having that discussion, he mentioned that he had a new thriller book that would be coming out. And we were like, ooh, yes, yes. So we had already discussed and said we wanted to read it, sign us up. And here we are. The book is not out yet, but by the time you see this, it might be. I know it comes out, I think like October 8th, early October, something like that. So just be on the lookout for it. I'll have it linked below. The synopsis of this book was one that I was confused by, and I understand because there's a lot that is going on in this book, and then there's things that you don't want to spoil. So let me try to sum it up for you. There are 2 storylines. There is someone named Shade who is basically like a ruthless killer, and there are FBI agents looking for him and hunting him down. That's one storyline. And then we have another storyline where there are 2 detectives looking for a serial killer. And in the process of all this, as I said, we have this ex-military soldier. I believe her name was Sarah. I'm not 100% sure. I will put it here if I'm wrong. But she is told that she could be the next victim of this serial killer. So she is also thrown into the mix. Now we have 2 timelines. One is in the present and one is a little bit before this. I don't fully remember how far apart they are. It's not years or anything like that, I don't think. I want to say it's like months. So I will say this was nothing like Nightmare. If I read these 2 books and you didn't tell me who the author was, I would not know it was the same author. I loved Nightmare. I've talked about this before. Shade was not necessarily my speed. Chad already knows this. I did a review on Goodreads. You know me. I'm going to be honest, and this is hard for me because I love me some Chad Nicholas. He's a sweetheart, but I have to be honest. And as I said, this one was just not my cup of tea. I really was enjoying the storyline more so where they were hunting for the serial killer. I would have preferred way more of that. I think that's what I thought this book was. But at the same time, when Chad Nicholas came and asked me to read it and I saw the cover, I was like, I don't know. It looks kind of violent and all of that. And I'm not really reading as many serial killer books these days. But I was like, for you, I'm going to do it. But like I said, I would have preferred more of the hunt for the serial killer storyline. This is not very character driven. And I am finding that I'm a very character driven reader. I love to get into characters and follow them and get to know them and feel for them. And this was just mostly action. It is a lot of action scenes. They are very descriptive to the point where I was skimming over a lot of them. This was like reading a superhero vigilante movie like The Punisher, or it also kind of reminded me of John Wick, where it's just, like I said, a lot of fighting and action and not really, you know, the dialogue is there, but it's just sprinkled in between. And then it's also just kind of like, I just wasn't invested. Unfortunately, I didn't really care for these characters in the book. I didn't really get to know them well enough. I know what he was trying to do. This book deals a lot with PTSD, and I don't know anything about it. I don't know much about it, so I can't speak to how authentic it is or whatever. But, you know, I appreciate him going into that topic. But like I said, because a lot of the characters are dealing with a lot of things. They're talking around topics, you know, we don't find out a lot of stuff to the end. So like I said, it was hard for me to grasp onto these characters and really care. Like I said, this book is really military themed and based and a lot of that, and I'm just not into the military thing. I don't really like it in movies. If it's like thrown into the middle of a movie like Forrest Gump, I'm fine with that. But like a movie all about military or war or anything like that, that's not me. So like I said, unfortunately, this book was just not my thing. If you like any of that stuff, you will enjoy it. It is getting positive reviews. Like I said, unfortunately, it just didn't work for me. So sorry to say, I gave this 2 stars out of 5. It was just okay for me. I told Chad Nicholas when he writes another horror book though, sign me up. Like I said, this one just didn't do it for me. Sorry. For my next book, so many of you, when I did my TBR video, were like, I can't wait to see what you're gonna think of this book. And I couldn't either. This was my first fantasy book, my first historical fiction book, a lot of those things. And I am talking about none other than The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I said it right. I was so looking forward to this book. I have a reading journal. I actually did my September theme with this circus theme in mind because I was so excited. This book is about 2 magicians, Celia and Marco, who have to participate in this game. And, you know, it's supposed to be also, there's this circus that pops up in town. And I mean, I wasn't sure what the circus had to do with them, but I was just like, the way it was described in the synopsis just sounds so, I mean, look at the cover. I was already just, And I love magic. I have loved magic since I was a kid. I have gone to see magic shows. I've watched all kind of shows about magicians and illusionists. I just love it. So I was just so looking forward to this. And let's just get into it because I know you want to know. Now, this book was so beautifully written. I mean, if you want to be taken away to another place, another time, and just be swept away and live in La La Land, this is it. I mean, after reading the other 2 books that were more dark and disturbing, I was so looking forward to this book. I mean, this is perfect for this time of year. There are plenty of descriptions of fall leaves and crisp air and caramel apples and just, I was cozied up in my bed and just here for it all. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses, I'm sorry. I am not on the in love with the Night Circus train. I'm not. Because some people said, if you go look on Goodreads, that whoever wrote this synopsis should have written the book or something was missed there. I somewhat agree. This game, so to speak, was not a game in the way I was picturing it. I was picturing 2 illusionists dueling it out. Now, it's supposed to be that these illusionists, they have this game, but they fall in love. And when they fall in love, things go awry and it messes up this game. Now, they don't fall in love for a good portion of the book, probably like half. And now, if you're new here, I am not one for romance. I don't even like it sprinkled in other books. I've talked about this in many other videos. So I wasn't necessarily looking forward to that part because the synopsis on Goodreads didn't mention nothing about no romance. And then when I read the book jacket synopsis, I was like, what's this about romance? But I had already picked it up, so I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna deal. But like I said, as I was reading it, I was like, where's the damn romance? And when it happened, it was just like, okay. It was just kind of like these 2 people understood each other and that was what they were attracted to. It really didn't evolve. I didn't feel anything for their romance. I didn't really necessarily believe it. It was just kind of like, okay, sure, I guess. So I just went along for the ride with that. And as I said, I was rather disappointed in the game. I won't ruin it for you, but like I said, it is not how I was picturing it. So like I said, this dueling of magicians, not what you're getting. And it started to drag for me. Around the 40% mark, we started getting chapters that were following other characters of the story that I didn't care about. So I skimmed a lot of that stuff. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I was like, can we get back to Celia and Marco? I really don't care about these other people. And even with skimming, I didn't miss anything with these other folks. One character, I understand why we had chapters about him, comes into play towards the end, but some of these other folks, I didn't need whole chapters about them. This book is 387 pages, and I think you probably could have taken out 100 of those. It was just a little too long, because like I said, all those extra chapters with these other folks, I could have done without. And then I was even to the point where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish this book, because it is just taking me a while. But I was also still feeling called to it because of the comfy, cozy vibes and the historical aspect of it. Just, I love old movies, the way people used to dress with class and style, and the way that was described in here, I just kept wanting to escape to that world. So that kept drawing me back to the book. But then I'd start reading it again and be like, oh, I forgot, this is getting boring. So like I said, I almost DNF'd it. But finally, it picked back up towards the end of the book, and when I got to the end, it was a page turner. I was like, what is going on? Ooh, secrets were being revealed. I was finding out things. I was like, oh, okay. So like I said, towards the end of the book, it really picked up. I was flipping pages. The ending, like when I say the ending, I mean like the last 3 or 4 pages. I was just like, okay. Once again, we didn't focus as much on the 2 main characters, Celia and Marco, and I wanted things more wrapped up with them too, because they were the main reason we were reading this book. So yeah, it was good. It wasn't great for me. I wanted it to be great, and it was not great. It was just good. So I ended up giving The Night Circus 3.5 stars. As I said, I enjoyed it. I would love if you have any other recommendations that are dealing with magicians or circuses that are more action-packed. This was not so much. But as I said, I did enjoy it. I got through it. Look at me. No DNFs this month. Who is she? Who am I? Spoiler alert, no DNFs. So let's talk about the next book. Last but not least, we have a book that I saw on a fellow BookTubers channel, The Bookish Report, and his name is Alex. I saw him talk about this book, and he mentioned that it had a twist to it, so it caught my attention. I'm always here for twists and turns and surprises and movies and books, all of it. So I was like, oh, I want to read this book. And he said, you know, if you read it, make sure you read it in August, September, fall time. So I waited, and here we are. And I'm speaking of The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This is a cute little, look at it, a little cute little book. Let's see, it's about 300 pages, 304 pages, so perfect size. And it is another historical fiction book. Who am I? I am growing up. Look at me. These are my first 2 historical fiction books, and I will say I will continue. I enjoy them. Who knew? I mean, like I said, I know I love old movies and stuff, but I just love these old time periods just being, like I said, taken away from this time and this world. But anyway, so this book is about a woman named Elsie who is recently widowed. Her husband died mysteriously. We don't know what happened. And she is also with his child. And they were supposed to move to this house that he has in his family that's in the country. This book takes place in the UK, in London. And they are going to go, like I said, to this country house. But she's like, she was rather rude, I will say, for a character, because she's a mistress is what they call, you know, the woman of the house. And she does not have nice things to say about the servants, the help. And I was like, this woman is not likable. Am I supposed to like her? The jury's still out, but it starts off where you get a taste of her and what she's like. So she gets to this house and she just feels like, oh, it's filthy, and look at these people here. Oh, it's just a mess. And whatever. But also her husband's body was taken to this house because they want to bury him there in this town. So she's also there to bury her husband and all of that. And then she finds there is a secret locked room. She finds her way into this room and she finds a wooden figure, which they end up calling the companions, silent companions. But they always refer to them as companions in the book. But also there's a journal in this room that is written by a woman who lived in the house 200 years prior. Now, this one takes place in the 1800s, so the journal entries are from the 1600s. I was like, whoa, we going way back. Yeah, so because it's historical fiction, and like I said, we're dealing with the 1800s and the 1600s, there is historical fiction, old school language. Now, I will say I enjoyed this book, But if you are not good with that kind of stuff, like I said, the language, then this may not be for you. I'm surprised I was able to hang with it. There were some terms and stuff that I was like, I don't know what they're talking about, but I could pretty much get it from the context clues. We also are alternating. So there's 3 different timelines. There is the start where it's the 1800s. She's showing up at this house. And like I said, we're finding out what's going on at this house when she finds the companions. And then we're also going to another time period that is at a mental institution where she is being held in the present. So the 1800s chapters are somewhere in the future. We don't really know how close they are to where she's at this mental institution. And then once she finds the journal from the woman who used to live there in the 1600s, we're also getting chapters from her journal entries. So like I said, 3 different time periods to keep track of. But they were easy to keep track of. I didn't find them difficult. I think because the names were so different, I don't know, I was able to keep up. Like I said, look at me. And there are a lot of names because there's Mrs. this and Miss that, and because everybody's called Mr. and Mrs. So at a certain point I was like, wait, which one is this? I will say I wasn't able to keep track of all the people working at the house, but the main characters, I was definitely able to keep track of them. But anyway, this was definitely very comfy, cozy. I see why Alex said to read this in the fall, because a lot of it takes place in fall, and then there's even a chapter that's like in the winter. There is a chapter where they talk about Easter coming up soon, but it doesn't talk about like warm weather or anything like that. Most of it is dealing with crisp air and coldness and, like I said, this old creepy house and just the atmosphere. I loved it. I know Alex calls this gas lamp horror. Okay, I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. Now I will say it wasn't all perfect. After we get the setup of the story where she gets to the house and she finds the wooden figures, it started to drag a little bit for me. I was doing some skimming and I was again like, maybe DNF in this book. But I had to know what this twist was that Alex spoke of. So I kept reading. And around page 100, it picked up from there until the end. I was on the edge of my seat. I was hooked. And I will say, I end up really enjoying this book. This is what I'm talking about. Whenever I find a horror book that does not really contain disturbing things, content warnings that I don't like, I'm just always like, yes, why? Now, I mean, there were some animal deaths in here, but we didn't get descriptions of when they died. It was more the aftermath. So that didn't bother me as much. It still was like, oh no. But like I said, it didn't bother me as much. It definitely gets gory at points where I was like, oh, we're going there? Okay. And there is a mystery to the story because we don't know what's up with these companions. At first there's one and then they start to multiply and there's all kind of stuff going on with that. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't get too much into that. But I will say now, I didn't necessarily feel there was a twist, but definitely the last 2 pages and the very, very, very last page, it was like, yes. It made me love the whole book because towards the end, I was like, okay, where is this going? Because if it's going in this direction, this is going to be womp womp. But it took another turn, like I said, in the last page, and I loved it. I could picture it as a movie. I wish they would make it into a movie. But I will say now, I just finished this today before I film this video. So I have not done a Goodreads review yet, but as of right now, if I change my mind, I will put it up here on the screen, but I'm going to give this 4 stars. Like I said, if it didn't drag a little bit, it probably would have been 5. And it may have been me because after Night Circus where that dragged, I just wasn't really here for more slow stuff. But maybe if I had read this at a different time, I may not have minded as much, but I still enjoyed it, especially like I said, the last 200 pages. I recommend it. Like I said, if you can deal with historical fiction and the language and all of that, I definitely recommend it. Slow burn, but after 100 pages, it's not that slow. Recommended. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up my September reading. Like I said, it was not so bad. It wasn't as bad as August, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I was a little bit disappointed in the Night Circus, but I still enjoyed it. Night Circus and Silent Companions definitely gave me my cozy, comfy, cozy autumn vibes that I was looking for. But when I was reading the Night Circus, I was kind of like, I'm ready for October so I can get to my Halloween themed book. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, what you think about them. I would love to know if you disagree with me, if you agree. I always love to hear what you guys think about the things that I've read and what you have to say about them. And if you don't have a comment, you can just leave me some kind of circus emoji. So I know you made it this far in the video. I always like to know who watches to the end because YouTube likes to say, most people don't watch to the end. Prove them wrong. Anyway, that is all for this video. So until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book, unplug as much as possible, be kind to all kind, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.